Where are the low-value men?
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. You can believe that. You can believe that. You can believe that.
Contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide, he's now recovered.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
From the headlines to the whisper star. Low value mail. Low value mail at 9 o'clock. Where truth and fiction take a walk.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Our stories are.
Welcome back, everybody, to an all-new episode of Lag Value Mail. I don't know what it is. It's something new every week. One day we'll figure it out. I have not been able to figure it out because it's not a consistent thing where I can say this is what it is. They say change your stream settings. I change them. Doesn't work. Then I change them to something else. Works. Seems like it always works the second time for some reason. First time, never works. Second time, works no problem. No idea what it is, but welcome everybody to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail on this Monday, July 7th, 2025. This is episode number 152, and joining me in the second hour, we have Trevor Lohman, a PhD neuroscientist and the author of God's Eye View, and he'll be joining us to chat, I believe, about the neuroscientist's case for there being a God, because you know those neuroscientists, mostly atheists. Welcome back. It's good to see you all. All right. Let's get into it. I don't know if you guys are going to like this. But the Epstein case is officially closed. That's it. It's over. It's totally over. Jover. And I stand before you all right now, a very, very black-pilled man today. Now, this may not sit well with some of you, but I'm starting to think that conspiracy theories might be fucking stupid. Tell me how this shit is any different than being into magic cards or sports. What is the point of any of it? Really, what is the point? I'm asking you that. And, you know, the phone lines will be open in 20-ish minutes. You tell me what I'm missing here. Because from a first principles approach, you should always have a healthy distrust of the government. Safe to say you probably all agree with me on that, right? These people aren't your pals, regardless of what your bumper stickers or your fucking hats say. These are not your friends, okay? You elected them. They are your employees. You pay for them. They work for you, right? So what is the purpose of proving conspiracy theories to be true? Just that you arrive back at that point? Is that all it is, that the government lies to us? Because we know that. Every person watching this show right now knows that. I think you watch this show because you know that. Some people might think, yeah, there goes people in government. They're just good, honest, hardworking people. Sure, they front-run stock trades with insider information, but for the most part, these are good, salt-of-the-earth people with a net worth of $250 million for some reason, even though they make $200,000 a year and have been in public service their entire lives. I'm looking at you, Nancy Pelosi. But again, we all know that the government is lying. We know that. We all know it. But then we all just chase our tails thinking if we get to the bottom of this one, this time it will be different. This time it'll be different. Well, it isn't. Bad fucking news, okay? The government trudges on. The people in government do what they do. Most people don't even care about this shit. They'll have their own version. They have their own version of things they care about, right? Sports. Some people just care about sports, except this isn't your favorite sports team. Where you decide, you know what? I'm not watching or I'm not buying tickets or merch until this team gets their act together. No, see, this team will lock you in a fucking cell if you decide to stop supporting them. Ask Wesley Snipes, countless other people. This isn't the same thing, right? So I ask you as a newly black-pilled man. I wore my favorite black shirt today because the pill I took was fucking obsidian, okay? What is the point? I asked Grok today for a list of conspiracy theories that were proven true. Here's what I got, okay? I'm sure there's many more. This is what I got. MK Ultra, Tuskegee experiments, COINTELPRO, NSA mass surveillance, and Gulf of Tonkin. All right? I then asked if anyone went to jail over any of these. You know how many people went to jail? 0. Big, fat, fucking 0. They ruined Edward Snowden's life over it for the whistleblowing. Guy lives in fucking Russia right now. Still has yet to receive a pardon from Donald Trump. Otherwise, 0. Okay? There was some public criticism. Grok let me know, hey, there was some public criticism. Oh no, don't criticize me publicly. I'm merely a modest government official. They had some investigations. Oh yeah, they had some investigations. Now, normally when the police investigate something, they do so with the purpose of charging and then convicting someone of a crime, right? That's how this shit normally works. For you and I, anyhow, that's how this works. Say we find out the moon landing was fake. I'm sure many of you believe that. I operate, like I said, on a probabilities basis. I don't think it's 100% one way or another, okay? Say we find out the moon landing was fake. Conclusive evidence. Then what? Then what? What happens? Can you tell me? What happens? Now you can say you super duper don't trust the government. You go, I didn't trust the government before. Now I really don't trust the government. I mean, you already don't. If you're watching this, you probably already don't. And look, whoever is in power right now, this came out, they go, moon landing, fake, never happened. They'll just say, the people that did that, they're dead. They're dead now. I didn't do that. That was fucking 60-something years ago. They're dead. They might even say sorry. I mean, like, sorry. It's unlikely. They might say it. I think this about a lot of the Jew stuff, actually, to be perfectly candid. I have a good feeling. We'll catch up with Jared and Slav in 50 years from now. Maybe not Slav, he'll be dead. But the NBA, the NFL, MLB, the NHL, be 90% Jewish ownership. There'll be more Jews in the United States than there have ever been. They won't run Hollywood anymore because that will be gone. But guess what? Whatever the new thing is, they'll have a nice piece of that. Alongside Indians and Asians. They'll be overrepresented in everything alongside Indians and Asians. And they'll just you guys will be wasting your lives just combing through the Talmud, thinking if I just find this one smoking gun in here, we'll finally win this thing. As you're literally the only white people left in your town and spent your entire lives pursuing this. But who am I to judge? Hey, I'm not here judging. Everyone wastes their time on one thing or another, okay? Keep going, boys. Don't stop. Don't stop. And I'm just a black-pilled man. So take this with a grain of salt. I am a black-pilled man. And that is all. Now, to the reason for my revelation. I'm sure you all know. Obviously, I mentioned it at the top of the show. But today, the Trump DOJ closed the file on Jeffrey Epstein. He committed suicide, and there was no list. Case closed. There is literally case closed, and there is literally nothing you can fucking do about it. You as in you watching right now or listening. There's nothing you can do. Mainly because, as much of you all watching the show think this is a huge deal. What a huge deal. Your average person does not give a shit. All right? They're at some fucking fair right now eating God knows what, stuffed deep fried butter and a giant turkey leg. They don't give a shit. Okay? If anything, we're the naive ones. We're the naive ones because they know how the world actually works. And we're the ones not willing to accept it, right? They're just like, yeah, that's how it works. And we're like, no, it can't be this way. And they're like, yeah, it is. Grab a fucking turkey leg and get on the goddamn Ferris wheel. But we're like, no. What about the list? What about the flight logs? It really feels like they're fucking with us at this point. It does. And look, did you guys really think Bill Clinton was going to jail? Did you think that? Have you had that thought at some point in the last few years that William Clinton, two-time president of the United States, husband of Hillary Clinton, did you think he was going to jail? Epstein literally had a painting of Bill Clinton wearing a blue dress hanging in his house. You thought Bill Clinton would be rotting behind bars and getting conjos from fucking Hillary until he eventually died? A fate worse than death, might I add. Is that how you thought this was going to play out? Maybe I had a fantasy in my mind that, yeah, this is how it's going to play out. Yeah, Bill Clinton's going to jail. This guy's going to fucking rot in jail for the rest of his life. No. That's not how this works. They released an 11-hour video. This is the Justice Department, FBI, I don't know exactly who, but they released an 11-hour video showing a jail cell that Epstein wasn't even in. Because if you remember, he was in a different part of the jail, right? Because they accidentally deleted those videos, right? They don't have those videos. They accidentally deleted them. So we have video from a different section of the jail where nothing happens. Cherry on top, there's just a minute missing at one point from the video 6 hours before his body was purported to be discovered. God knows what we can believe anymore. They're just they are just having fun right now. They are having a fun fucking time. They go, you know what? You know what would be a funny thing to do with this 11-hour video that shows absolutely nothing? It's not even pointed at his cell. I was watching this. I was like, oh, sick. We're going to get to see him walk in the cell. And then 11 hours later, his fucking comes out on a stretcher. No. You see some fucking janitor coming, some guard making a phone call. And they just removed a minute at the somewhere near the end, at around 11:59. You can go watch it yourself. Around 11:59 p.m. There's just a minute. It just jump cuts. 1 minute. Just so us retards go on some wild goose chase and have something to talk about for the next 20 years while the people who are in charge get their work done. It's like a Kong for retards. That's what this is. You know those dog toys? Those Kongs, they're hollowed out, and you put some peanut butter inside of them, and you give them to a dog to keep them busy? That's what this is. We're just a bunch of dogs just trying to get that last bit of peanut butter from the inside of this thing. They are literally fucking with us at this point. They must be. They must be. And you're like, oh, you don't like it? Cool, go vote for the Democrats. Go ahead. See what changes. Oh, you won't vote at all? Even better. Even better. Now, let's discuss all the possibilities here so I don't lose my mind. Possibility number one, there is actually no list, okay? And Epstein did, in fact, kill himself. I'm going to give that less than 1% chance. The odds of that, there are just too many facts that we know to be true to think this is possible. Maybe he did kill himself. I'll concede. Maybe he did kill himself. Let's even give them that, okay? Even still, the guy had a private island full of underage girls, and he had powerful friends. Surely one of them partook. And let's not even talk about all the crazy shit about where he got his money from, where he came from. Like, just like, if you just look at it on this like super surface level, you go very unlikely. Factor in all the blackmail stuff, you go impossible, right? And we know from Nick Bryant, former guest of the show, runs EpsteinJustice.org. Go check that out. Sign the petition. There are several women living in the United States whose whereabouts are known to the federal government who helped procure women for Ghislaine Maxwell. If you just charge those women, surely some of them will start ratting, right? But no, they won't even do that, even though these women are very likely guilty of serious crimes. Not going to do it, okay? Number two, there is some kind of grand plan we are not aware of, and this is all just a part of it. This is Trump 5D chess. Lull these elite pedophiles into a false sense of security before catching them in some kind of clever trap. I'll give that 5%. I think I'm being generous. I'll give that a 5% chance that that's going to happen, okay? Number three, they actually have all the evidence. It was not destroyed. And the deep state is so powerful that once you join the government, both sides just work in concert to conceal the evidence because they're like, whatever he was doing is way more important than throwing Bill Clinton in jail or Bill Gates or whatever. This is a thing we do. And we just, look, you're on our team now. I know that, when the TV cameras turn on, there's a real kayfabe thing going on here. We're real adversaries. But when the cameras are off, we're pals, all right? This is what happened. Keep your mouth shut, all right? I'll give that a 20% chance. I'll say there's a 20% chance that happened. Number four, okay? The previous administration destroyed any evidence to rich and powerful pedophiles, potentially because sexual blackmail is literally one of their go-to tactics, and they're just not giving it up because one of their guys got popped, all right? Potentially at the behest of one or more foreign governments. I know what you guys are saying. Look, Trump may have even been included in the list, but so many other Democrats were that they were willing to cover for them regardless of how much they despise Trump, because at the end of the day, they just want to save their own ass. And they don't hate him that much that them and their friends want to go rot in jail. Okay? I'll give that a 75% chance. I believe that all adds up to about 100. I might be missing something. You let me know. None of these options are great because we know the first one's not true. None of these options are great. Regardless, massive cover-up. It must be. And there's literally nothing you or I can do about it. Nothing. Go watch the fucking Indiana Fever. You seen Caitlin Clark? She can hit one from the logo. And she's biological woman. Real impressive stuff. And then, look, that might be the lesson here, is that, look, they do what they want. And if you think, gee shucks, I'm going to run and become a congressman or go work for the FBI and take the corruption down from the inside, guess what? You're not, okay? You're not doing that. It's not how it works. Edward Snowden tried that. He lives in Russia now. I'm sure Moscow's not terrible, but he can never come back to America ever again. He probably can't leave Russia, which my parents did that for a while. They don't speak very fondly of not being allowed to leave Russia. It was a different time back then, but I'm pretty sure you want to be able to leave Russia if you live there. And look, we're all probably, maybe not me, maybe I'm too black-pilled, but we're all just going to talk about this for the next 60 fucking years, like JFK or the moon landing. You'll almost certainly never be vindicated. You can tell your grandchildren about this, and they literally will not give a shit. You'll tell them about fighting the power and exposing the deep state, and they'll have to remove their VR glasses to find out what Grandpa is rambling on about this time, because they're too busy building the Roblox or whatever the hell they do. But the fact is, this is just how things are. There's nothing we can do about it. Can't vote your way or not vote your way out of this problem. That's it. I'm the most black-pilled man on earth. I'm sorry to have to drop this on you. Phone lines are open, 1-888-949-2969. Before we take some calls, like and subscribe to the channel. If you're an audio listener, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a review. Share it on Twitter. Share it on Instagram. You got an Instagram story? Huh? You got an Instagram? I know some of you do. Share it on there. If you enjoy the show, you can support it. Patreon.com/low-value-mail, MAIL. And also, if we hit the super chat goal, I'll do an extra 30 minutes tonight. Also, we got a new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, God willing. We got a super chat from, who's this from? Vincent says, strive to affect positive change in those around you. The rest is entertainment. Also, stay strapped. Stay strapped is maybe the best advice. Stay strapped, that's good advice. Pretty good advice. Nameless Wallaby says, being able to leave Russia is one of the best things about America. Yeah, no shit. Shout out to Aggressive Yeti. Dropping some super chats. Good for him. All right, let's take some calls here. Hello. Oh, no, not there yet. Oh, here we go. No, didn't work. Let's try it again. Guys, I'm so black-pilled. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Rob, what's up, Danny?
Yo, what's up, man?
I was just wondering, you're talking about the deep state, the potentiality that they destroyed all this stuff. I think any percent chance that happened, they did it before they even, like, if they're that powerful, they would have done it before he got indicted.
Probably. I mean, maybe it never existed.
Yeah,
maybe it never existed. Maybe it was destroyed. I mean, he had his Florida case where they literally were like, this guy is like, it was like, I remember, forget the exact quote, but they're like, it isn't like the national interest to like leave this guy alone.
I think it's a 50-50 chance whether they killed him or he killed himself. I think there's a chance he killed himself out of fear of what they would do to him if they got him.
Certainly possible.
If they could kill him in that jail, they could abduct him and do some things to him.
Yeah, it's also possible that he's just like, you know what, this sucks, and I lived a pretty good life, and I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, but I think all this stuff was cleaned up years, maybe even a year before this happened to him.
Say that again, sorry?
I think this stuff was cleaned up in advance of anything that happened to him.
Potential. I mean, they still did arrest, but he still was like arrested in whatever 2018. So it couldn't have been that cleaned up. Like they didn't have the power to avoid that.
I don't know. I think like a lot of the stuff related to the client lists or whatever that was got cleaned up.
Sure.
In the intermediate.
I mean, assuming
I don't think that there's anything that's provable.
Not anymore. That's for sure. Definitely not anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I think what this sort of shows is there's no point in going out there and charging Bill Clinton. There's no point. Because all this
Charge him with
gone,
what?
and it's been gone.
Charge him with what?
Yeah, well, no, they can. They can charge him with whatever, but the evidence is like, oh, we found your name on a list. Like all the videos, all that's gone.
Yeah, that's just, even though they're like, we have 10,000 videos or something. They had like 10,000 hours or something along those lines. Are we just made to believe that that's literally just Jeffrey Epstein abusing these women and nothing else?
Yeah, I don't know, unless they're taking POV. I like 10,000 hours and he's the only guy in them? Yeah.
Because they said pretty recently that they had him like.
But they had, remember, 11 of those hours were of that jail camera that showed nothing.
No, the 11, the jail camera showed absolutely nothing.
It depends what they're classifying as evidence. They could just be taking 10,000 hours of footage from a camera that didn't really see much.
Yeah. I mean,
I think all the cameras that showed the more heinous stuff are gone.
I mean, assuming they existed, I mean, they did conveniently fucking delete them. And again, there's nothing you can do about it. They're gone. They accidentally didn't back them up properly. And look, I'm not like, I know that people who work as correction officers are very underpaid. This isn't like a high skilled job. So I'm not like, they have their best and brightest on this. I know that's not the case, but still, what a coincidence.
Yeah. That was all. Hey,
all right, man.
Danny.
Good talking to you, man. All right. Let's go to Slav and see what he has to say about this. You guys don't hear this echo, do you? It's just on my end, I imagine. Phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. If I have to ask you to repeat something, it's because I have an insane echo in my ears right now. Because for some reason, there's always just something that doesn't want to work with this shit. It's always something. All right. Slav's not picking up. That's a fucking first. Oh,
hello?
Yeah, there he is. Yo, what's up? Slav, everybody.
I'm taking you up on that 50 years. I'm pulling up. I don't care where you are. I'm pulling up in 50 years.
All right.
I ain't going to be dead, bro.
All right. I mean, I would love nothing more than to lose that bet.
I mean, look, if you're still touring at age 90,
92.
I'll buy a ticket in two.
I hope not. I hope I'm fucking just on a golf course somewhere at that age, or dead, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I'll show up to your grave and take a shit on it.
Attaboy.
I'll knock all the stones off of your grave.
Yeah, you could take a shit on it. Normally they just put a stone on it, but I'll let this one slide. Am I wrong to be so black-pilled right now?
Dude, you might as well be allowed to say nigga, bro. Like, eating so many of these black pills. I could see you changing color on camera. It's crazy.
I mean, I'm telling you, I was fucking reading this shit today. I go, I don't know what other position to take here.
Bro, but this is what I was telling you and any guest you had on. I sleep easily, knowing it's the Jew. God.
But like, so what? You're just 50 years from now, nothing's changed. And you're just gonna be like, it's the Jew. And the people are going,
it is. Yep.
Sure, Grandpa.
Nope. It's yeah.
Just that's it.
Dude, I grew up around people, not like in our family or anybody, their coworkers, but I always heard. I think it started really popping off in the 90s, where it was like revisionists and people who were like, Hitler was Hitler really the bad guy? I think it was the 90s when people really started questioning the history of World War II.
90s? I mean, I haven't heard any. Literally, my theory is that all this new wave of racism is...
No, it's been going on for a while.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I understand that people have been questioning it. No doubt.
I mean, they've been questioning... they've been doing the revisionism since literally the end of the war.
Yeah. So, no, I know that. I mean, I remember there was...
General Patton even said we were fighting the wrong enemy. So,
really interesting.
You don't know this? Yeah,
I don't know this.
General Patton was. Do you know how he died?
No. How did General Patton die?
They say it was a car accident while he was still in France.
Interesting.
But yeah, no photos, no nothing. He was murdered because he was like.
He knew too much.
Yeah, no, he said we fought the wrong enemy.
Interesting. I'll have to check that quote for myself. I'll have to verify it.
No, it's literally, it's nothing to verify. It's literally public record. It's just.
But like, is it
everything-
public
everything is, like,
record?
public
Is it
record.
like public record on like the Daily Stormer, or is it like?
No, you could. It's literally, you can even find it on Google.
Really?
You can find it on.
Oh,
Yeah, on Google, on
Here we go.
DuckDuckGo, on Brit.
this is Google's AI, so take it with a grain of salt. It says, while the exact wording is debated, General Patton is known to have expressed sentiments suggesting the Allies had fought the wrong enemy in World War II, specifically implying a preference for the Germans over the Soviets.
Damn right, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
Stalin was a bad guy, dude.
Interesting.
There was never.
I mean, but
an invasion of Poland.
Nobody's saying that Stalin was a good guy. He's not like some good guy in history.
Well, I mean, if you type in Stalin, you won't be censored. You got to,
That's true.
use, exclamation marks and the number 3 when you got to type out Adolf's name.
That is true. That is true.
Same thing now, but so to make a little things more local to me, you know how we had the floods here in Texas?
Yeah, were you affected by the floods at all?
Nah, it was just raining a bunch, and it was raining while I was also working. But what is it? People are on purpose not talking about how there's a company called Rainmaker. It's like one of these companies whose CEO is like a Peter Thiel fellow, and it's like a company that's like funded by Peter Thiel.
Okay.
They openly admit to they have like 4 different cloud seeding projects going on here in Texas.
But
And
hasn't
it's
it always
between
flooded
the
in
hill
Texas? I mean, there's literally a Stevie Ray Vaughan song from the 80s called his album is called Texas Flood. And there's like a song where the lyrics are it's flooding.
Well,
down
what is
Texas.
it? I grew up in Houston. In Houston, it floods just because that whole portion of Texas sits on a bunch of clay, and the city's always subsiding and sinking.
Yeah.
And our bayous for a while, like they've upgraded the bayous since Hurricane Harvey, but it's just always been flooding. So that's that part. But basically in the hill country, it's because we have a lot of hills, we can get flash flooding where it comes in real fast.
Yeah, from what I
And then out in
understand,
the
the problem is it gets so dry that the ground just like doesn't absorb the water. So then it's basically like water just flowing over concrete.
So yeah, I mean it's part of normal. Like yeah, flooding is normal down here, but the level of this is like pretty insane. But what is it? Because what they talk about, like one of the big problems is we have one of the biggest aquifers, Edwards Aquifer, and it's been drying out. So they've been hiring this company called Rainmaker.
Yeah.
And the CEO even went on that Fed Sean Ryan show.
Yep.
And he was talking about, we have multiple projects going on in Texas. And one of those was aimed at rehydrating the aquifer system. So it's like I've been living in the hill country for like 6 years now. This weather and rain pattern was kind of not similar to the kind that I've noticed over the last 6 years living here. So, and what's crazy is nobody wants to bring it up, and it's openly like the CEO openly talks about it. Even while the rains and the flooding was happening, he even went out on Twitter. He's like, look, this is everything we did in the 2 days leading up to all these rains and flooding. If you have any questions or any other data, reach out to us. But there are people who are like lost people they know to the flooding, and they get upset when you bring it up.
Sure.
And it's like, don't get upset at me. I didn't cause this flooding.
I mean, basically,
I think it might be
left-wing conspiracy theories are like it's global warming. Right-wing conspiracy theories are like it's cloud seeding.
But the thing is, you can't call cloud seeding a conspiracy theory. They blatantly and openly brag about it. I mean, look what happened in Dubai. Or
I mean,
to
say that they are necessarily responsible for it. Like, obviously, they do it. Doesn't mean they're necessarily.
I mean,
at least it's not provable that
in the same area.
Like, can you prove that they're responsible for it? Like, can it be proven that
Can I
they are
what?
responsible for it?
Yeah. You just gotta ask them, hey, where did you do this and for how long? I mean, the guy even talked about, when we drop these chemicals in the air, we can formulate them to either stay in the air for this long or they can stay in the air for like a week or a month.
Yeah. Here's some tweets from the CEO, Augustus Dorico. He says, a review of the timeline of events overnight from July 3rd to 4th. Moisture surged into the hill country from the Pacific as remnants of tropical storm Barry moved across the region at 1 a.m. on July 4th. National Weather Service, which we work closely with. Hold on. I can't see this whole thing here. Basically, he says, did Rainmaker conduct any operations that could have impacted the floods? No. Obviously, he would say that. The last seeding mission prior to the July 4th event was during the early afternoon of July 2nd when a brief cloud seeding mission was flown over the eastern portions of south central Texas, and 2 clouds were seeded. How much rain can a single seeded cloud produce? It says the clouds persisted for about 2 hours after seeding before dissipating between 3 and 4 p.m. Natural clouds typically have lifespans of 30 minutes to a few hours at most, with even the most persistent storm rarely maintaining the same cloud structure for more than 12 to 18
Meanwhile,
hours.
he's been in like in front of some committee in Florida and on that Sean Ryan show. He talked about we like the chemicals we leave up there can last for days or weeks or months depending on what we choose.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if saying that cloud seeding has something to do with this upsets people, I'm just gonna say this then. It's all these goddamn sodomites that moved here from all these goddamn democratic states. They're coming here with all their fucking faggotry, and it's all Hurricane Katrina all over again. Jeffrey Falwell and
now, is there a problem?
Church were right.
Is there a problem with how dry it gets there? Does Texas have a problem where it's just like it's really wet and then really dry, but there's no in between?
Yeah. I mean, what is it? Like we have swimming holes that like get closed down, and we have lakes where the water level goes so low that you can't even use the boat ramps, and the edge of the water is like 100 yards or 200 yards away. So and the other problem is we have so many of these carpetbaggers and all of these curry creatures from India coming here, and they're building up all this development that it requires a lot of water just to build everything, and then everything's covered in concrete, so the water just flicks off and doesn't seep into the ground.
But isn't the issue that the ground is too firm because of the lack of moisture?
No, there's too much development.
No, I understand that, but I'm sure 99% of the space in Texas is undeveloped. Like I'm sure it's 99% undeveloped, and probably people live in 1%.
It's not that.
Maybe not, but it's probably above 90% of Texas is nobody lives there.
Well, the vital areas where water needs to be remained is kind of all basically just covered in concrete, and people, and then we got all these yuppies coming in from blue states who don't have any respect for the natural biology, so they get rid of native plants. They get their grass, thinking like, oh look, I'm living the suburban dream, I got green grass lawn. It's like, dude, people that have been living here in their own suburbs for generations need to keep natural wildlife and the natural.
I don't know. I was talking to Greta Thunberg right now. Very concerned. Yeah, I mean, you make some good points.
Well, I mean, Greta Thunberg ain't against migration, and Texas has been invading. So all these.
Yeah, but you're not against
outsiders.
migration, dude. If fucking 400,000 Polish people showed up, you'd have raging hard on for that.
No, because if 400,000 Polish people showed up, that means what's going on in Poland. They're gonna have a vacuum. Then they're all gonna be filled. They're gonna have to fill that vacuum with brown people. I mean,
that's your concern is for what happens to Poland afterwards?
Well, Germany is now dropping off their migrants, and German police are literally telling their migrants to legally invade into Poland. This is the first invasion of Poland by Germany. Because when Germany went into Poland in September of 39, they were welcomed because all the Western Polish people are Germanic.
Sure.
They literally welcomed them with open arms.
Yeah. All right. Well. Oh, all right, Slav. Good talking to you, man. Slav, everybody. Let's take another call here. We got our guest coming on in about 20 minutes. Thank you for joining the show. Sorry, I'm so blackpilled today. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail.
Hi, Danny. My question was, what do you think had to be offered to, promised to, and or threatened to these folks for them to totally do a 180 on the Jeffrey Epstein? Like, or even like, what would it take for you to come back on the next episode and be like, no, it was totally just a suicide? Like,
that's a good question. Like, you know, there's what's that law where don't chalk up to malice what can be described as incompetence. I can't remember.
Inland razor?
Something like that. I can't tell if they're just Trump put around him just the absolutely most incompetent people, because again, they had that whole stunt with the binders. Nothing was in the binders. Bondi said, she goes, we have all this shit on my desk. Now she's basically saying, I had all this shit on my desk. I read it. Guess what? There's nothing in there. Seemed like it was a big read. There's nothing in there. Alina Habba, who is the now Attorney General of, I believe, New Jersey, but she had some other role. She went on Piers Morgan, I don't know, sometime earlier this year. She says, it's incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, information, names that will come out, all this stuff. And then today, last night, turns out it was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. For me, I mean, I guess they would have to threaten my family, my life and my family. That generally tends to get people in line pretty quickly. Otherwise, again, there is a possibility what Elon said was correct when he had his little spat with Trump, where he goes, Trump is in there. And obviously they're not going to, Trump's attorney general certainly is not going to release evidence that incriminates him. At which point they just have to be like, nothing to see here. I don't know. I really don't know. But I mean, what do you think?
I mean, at the extreme, I don't think it's, you know, some sort of Ludovico technique, brainwashing. On the other end is just what is so horrifying. And it's like the truth would be so fundamentally damaging to the society in general that it would cause like psychological meltdowns. And it's just, the cost is too great to tell the truth.
I mean, like, and when you say that, you're like, what? Like Bill Clinton was in there? Like when you say that the cost was too damn, because I don't know if that's true. Like, I don't know if our society would crumble because everybody's like, yo, Bill Clinton is the guy who most people think he is. We just have the evidence for it. I guess their whole, you know, like, what I mean?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I remember Alex Jones saying is that the sexual blackmail was just a surface level thing. It was, and that there was much deeper depths to this. I mean, you had his New Mexico breeding facility. He wanted to seed the human race with his DNA. That the idea that he was like a middle manager, Epstein was, in a much larger entity. Sure. And there's some like darker, deeper depths to the entire tale that you can't really, you know.
Yeah, like maybe if something is like so like just science fiction, dystopian, crazy shit that we can't even, it's not even something that we could comprehend maybe that's going on with the government. I mean, sure, I guess that is a possible explanation. I guess like that I could see that being a reason why we wouldn't find out. I feel like that kind of overcomplicates what might just be like a more simple, inconvenient truth, if you will, which is just like they're all in on it, and it's just how it is. And like I said, there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe it's some fantastic yarn of some crazy shit that is, like you said, just this crazy thing, or just like a bunch of fucking old men, powerful men, fucking underage chicks, and they're just gonna keep doing it. And maybe they got their hand caught in the cookie jar here. Maybe they'll fucking, scale it back a little bit because this was a close call. But at the end of the day, they're like, nothing you can do about it.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I hope you and Whitney Webb can hang out sometime and
yeah, it would be
chew each
great.
other's
I've
ears
tried
off.
to get her on before. I've tried. I've contacted her. I'll try again though. Thanks, man. Gigam G says, does anyone know who the Epstein replacement is? I'm sure it's active already. I have no clue. I have no clue about that. If they are, they better do a fucking better job than Epstein did, though. That's for sure. Let's take another call here. We have Jacob. Jacob, are you there?
Yo!
What's up, man?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Loud and clear.
Well, that's the second time that I've said, yeah, that's not my name. And
oh, my bad.
That's all right.
Oh, normally
cool.
Mark. Yeah, normally Mark puts their names in the chat, so my bad.
Yeah, and he actually asked me, he's like, what's your name? And I was like, Judy.
All right.
It's all good. It's all
Blame
good.
Mark. My bad. What's up?
First of all, shout out to Chris if he's listening, because I appreciate you always chiming out with him, and I listen to you every day at work.
Yeah. I mean, Chris called in last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. It sounds like he's doing okay. I didn't feel like he was doing amazing, but he was alive, so I'll take it.
Yeah. So, gotta do what you can. But at the beginning of the episode, you brought up magic cards, and it kind of made me think about a story. And I'm going back like 30 years ago, like 8th grade. And my buddy Greg doesn't listen to the show, so I can say his name, but he stole my Force of Nature card. And then 30 years later, it was about last year, for a birthday gift, he brought me a framed Force of Nature magic card.
Like the actual card? Like he gave you your card back?
Not because he brought it to the house, and I was like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Just open it." And I'm like, "You got to be no, there's no way." And he's like, "No, I bought it online."
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice of him.
The point, and I've actually got it framed. It's in my living room right now. But it was a good gesture because it's been an ongoing joke for so long that, like, me and the buddies used to get together and play magic, and they got into guilds.
And you were like, I wish I had my Forces of Nature card right now to play. Greg?
Right. Yeah, thanks, Greg. Go, Greg. But anyway, all that being said, I think it goes into the kind of what Slav was saying was you're going to know decades later.
But I mean, we don't. There's so many things. We're 60 years in. JFK, the moon landing. We still don't know this stuff. And we're never going to know, probably. I mean, based off of the JFK files we got 6 months ago or whatever, earlier this year, we're not going to know any of this shit.
Right. Bunch of bullshit, right? No,
yeah, just a whole lot of bullshit. Just more fucking cons.
And I completely agree with you. I'm just about black-pilled myself. But here's where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to that latest episode with Joe Rogan at work today. That guy with the beard, I can't remember his name, but they were talking about AI and development. And I have a feeling because when you get companies that they're using their AI based on information that's available, whether it be the internet, which most of it is, because I'm sure a lot of the listeners have been on 4chan and typed in the thing, and that was all data mining for bots. And I think there's going to be a canary in the coal mine because AI is going to go parabolic. And when we get to the point that the government starts limiting information as far as access to AI and asking it certain questions. So, for example, maybe 5 years from now, if it's even that long, because you just asked AI about all of these conspiracy theories and all that, and it comes back with a generic response. But if AI does its job and just gives factual information, where are the sources of that information coming from? So, I'm meaning, like, if there are government entities that have AI and they're using AI, and if it leaks, if that information leaks, and we're talking about like quantum computing, they won't be able to stop.
Well, yeah.
So,
well, I could say that, you know, if you want to kind of like, it's very easy to muddy the waters with that stuff too, though, where you could just feed it, because it is training off all this information. And if you just fed it tons of fake information, it'll essentially just kind of dilute the end product, because you might not be able to stop it at one point, but you could be like, we could feed this so much bullshit and tell it it's true, and then it kind of just
it'll poison the well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Great band, by the way. But the information, like it's moving so quickly, and if what this guy on Rogan said is true, the valve is going to be opened and you won't be able to close it unless certain entities get involved and they start saying, hey, you know what? The flood dam is broke. Like we don't have control of it. So now the only other option is to, like China or other communist countries, and just say, you know what? We have limited access.
Sure. And maybe they do. And again, maybe they just go, hey, we're limiting everyone's access. And again, what are you going to do about it? You can go, maybe someone has some, like, you know, jailbroken AI that you can find in the depths of the internet or whatever, that they're, you know, they sue you for using or worse or whatever. But you're like, if the federal.
I get that. But I think.
And they will use it under the guise, because, you know, I had my thing with Jake Tapper where I made him that video for CNN, and then the segment was about making AI and politics illegal, which would obviously just be the start, or would be the guise under which they would limit it for everybody, as they go, look, you know, people are kind of making these like fake political ads and making politicians say stuff that they didn't say. It's interfering with elections. And that's how they kind of put the brakes on the whole thing. Is it just do it that way?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely a slippery slope.
Yeah, but, for sure.
But that's where we're going. We're going to get to a point of what. I mean, this is kind of back when, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when internet was kind of first coming around, and it was like MySpace, YouTube first starting, and you had access to basically anything that you wanted to see, and then other sites, kind of little offshoot sites, if you wanted to see like the you know, raunchy shit.
Sure.
But what I'm thinking now is, as far as like specifically the Epstein files, just to keep it on topic, I'm thinking if there was any sort of information that was uploaded into a data file that has access to online,
that it'll eventually make its way out, is what you're saying.
That it will leak, not manually, not by a human.
Yeah. But the AI itself will do that. I mean, I guess the only thing I could think of at this point is that, because I can't imagine that they have anything of that sort unless there's like some rogue actor who just has a jump drive somewhere with all this information on it. And
you don't think because there's a lot of.
I mean, I figure anything incriminating, they're like, we don't have a list. Like, again, unless there is a list and they're just like, this is the government's policy, regardless of who's in office. They just go, yeah, it's there, and we're just saying it doesn't exist. Yeah. Possibly.
Well, and the messed up part is you'll have somebody. I mean, there might be somebody working there right now who's got a thumb drive, and he's like, you know what? I'm holding on to this just in case. And then a couple of years from now,
sure,
AI gets so advanced, and he's like, you know what? All I got to do is plug this into this one computer,
and just it goes everywhere.
That's connected to the internet, and then it's out.
Yeah.
You know?
All right.
And then what?
Sorry, just wrap this up, just because I got to take another call.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But I guess the point I'm making is, I know, like Ashton Forbes, shout out MH370, talks about 0 point energy. I'm thinking about 0 point information.
Yeah,
because
interesting.
Once that happens, it could be, it goes parabolic, and then what do they do to contain?
Sure.
It's almost like
once the cat's out the bag, I guess. All right, man. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Danny.
Take care. All right, let's go to Pablo here. Phone lines are closed. I can't take any more calls. I got to get to the guest in a few minutes. Pablo, what's up, man?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going, Danny?
How you doing, man?
Doing good, Danny. Doing good. How about you?
Very well. Very well. Just enjoying my new
Great
Blackpill
to hear.
life.
Hey, aren't we all? So I had a quick question on what you think. So Trump's big beautiful bill just passed, or at least most of it passed. Did you see anything about about a congressman had just pushed through the ability for the federal government to sell off public land?
Yeah,
you saw that, right?
I know that was like a big thing, is that they want to sell off public land. Yeah,
right. And a couple of states got so many complaints that there's exceptions. There's certain states public land it can't be sold off. I don't know how many states got into it. And my question is, do you think that this is one of two things? My first thought is this is just a quick cash grab in order to make money to quote unquote reduce the deficit. So then Trump can go, look, we reduced the deficit. I did what I said I was going to do. I'm the only president to do that in the last 40 years or whatever it is. Or do you think this is a quick cash grab in that they need funding for something, i.e. a military effort or something of the sort?
I mean, apparently ICE's new budget is larger than the Russian military's.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, not good for you and your family. But yeah, I don't know. I would think, Trump's like a real estate guy, and he goes, we're just sitting on all this valuable real estate that nobody's using or developing. Like in his mind, he's probably like, what a waste. Even though real estate, like the longer you wait, the more valuable it gets.
Yeah.
Right. But again, there's tons. It's like you could probably sell off 1% of America's real estate, assuming you sell it to Americans. Like you don't want to sell it to China. That would be a national security issue. But I mean,
we already do that, but whatever.
There's certainly like you could. It's not ideal. Like you do not want to get in a financial position as a country where you need to sell land. That's for sure. But again, there's so much of it. But then also you're like, you don't know what your land needs are going to be, assuming that America is still a country in 1,000 years. That might look like a bad decision. Maybe you give these like 99-year leases, which a lot of people do. I mean, I'd be more prone to like try and lease the land versus sell it so that at the end of the day you retain ownership. If you're just going to sell it in perpetuity, I don't think that's the best idea.
Right.
Especially when there's like, you can spend less money. There's a lot of ways to generate revenue as a country, especially this country.
Right. I guess my major concern was that, Trump being a real estate guy has buddies who are, either want to mine oil or mine coal or whatnot. And they just said, listen, man, like we want to get in there. We want to pay you guys, but the government just won't let us. So, if you can, do something, and we're more than willing to compensate for you.
Yeah. I mean, I still think leases are a better option. Like you give them a 99-year lease, which is like they do that. That is like a thing that they already do. And then you're not literally giving up the rights to the land like forever. I'm sure they give I'm sure the issue for these mining leases and stuff and oil leases is they have all the EPA like environmental shit, and you go, yeah, I mean, you could go get rid of some of the red tape for that, but to actually sell it, I don't think that's a sign of like a necessarily healthy country to just go sell fucking million acres of land, of federal land. I don't think that's a great idea.
Personally. No, definitely not. Either way, that was my question. Just, do you think Trump is trying to figure out how to say that he's lowered the deficit?
I mean, that's not that impressive to lower the deficit by selling land, because on your, like, if you look at it from like a balance sheet standpoint, you're like, you just removed an asset and traded it with another asset. So it's like the balance sheet's the same. You just have, you just moved it from one side to the other, I guess. But you're like, you gave something up to get that money that was like valuable. It's not like you didn't grow the economy. Like this isn't like you're not more productive now. You just sold an asset you have. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think so. All right. Later, Pablo. Pablo, everybody. Fuck. I got to go, unfortunately. I don't have to go. I got to get to the guest. I'm sorry if we have callers on the line. I hate having to do this, but the guest is waiting. And Mark needs to leave at 9 o'clock. So I apologize for that. Please call in during the show, though, or during the guest, and we will chat. I am sorry about that. I hate doing this. All right. We're going to go to the break right now. Please don't go nowhere. I will be back with our guest. Just give me a few minutes. Don't go anywhere. All right, we are back. Everybody, thank you for waiting patiently. Joining me today is a PhD neuroscientist and the author of God's Eye View, Trevor Lohman. How's it going, Trevor?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. As I was mentioning to you before, everything sounds echoey to me for some reason. It feels like I've taken DMT, and I'm hearing
that might be good for this chat. We'll see.
Space elves right now. What are they? The machine elves. But otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. So tell people just who don't know you who you are.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Trevor Lohman. By day, I do clinical neuroscience research. Pretty boring, mundane stuff. I wish I was at Oxford doing, DMT
sure
experiments and all that. But just, regular, mostly focused on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, stroke. But by outside of work hours, I'm come to become a little obsessed with consciousness, like a lot of people. And so I just wrote a book recently called God's Eye View, exploring basically how wrong neuroscience is about consciousness right now.
So what's I guess when you say how wrong, just like the field of neuroscience. So
yeah, the mainstream field. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the field's position on consciousness?
So it's kind of split between two possibilities. One is that there's no such thing, that it's an illusion, that it's just this thing we experience, but it isn't real, which is kind of a silly way of getting out of answering the question. And then the alternative explanation, which at least is an attempt to explain it, is that it's an emergent property, which again kind of means you don't really know what it is. But like another example of an emergent property is a school of fish. So no one fish knows exactly how to make this spinning ball of fish. They just know to stay a few inches from their neighbors. And it results in this big geometric pattern, which is a school of fish. And so the idea is that consciousness similarly just sort of emerges out of network complexity, which kind of comes from this new AI movement. There's this idea that if you make a network complicated enough, it becomes sentient. But it's just an idea. It's kind of silly. It's pseudoscientific. It's non-falsifiable. It's just popular right now. So.
Sure. And has that always been that school of fish analogy? That's fairly recent?
Yeah. I mean, the very first idea about consciousness was called production theory. That's like 100 years old. I'm sorry, transmission theory, which is like 100 years old. And it was this idea that, even Tesla had, was that your brain was sort of like an antenna or a receiver for consciousness. And that somewhere out there in the universe was, a collection of souls or like a collective consciousness that you tapped into. That was the first idea. And then that got replaced over the next few decades with production theory, which is just that your brain makes consciousness, but they never really formalized a theory until, like a few decades ago. It's called integrated information theory. And there's a lot of fancy words and jargon, but at the end of the day, nobody knows. It's based on fMRI. It's based on theory. It's not even testable.
Sure. I imagine this is not a really testable thing. So what is your theory and I guess the basis of your book?
Yeah, well, I won't take too much credit. It's a lot smarter folks than me have come up with this stuff. I've just kind of put it all together in a narrative format. But I mean, way back in the 1900s, these really incredible physicists in Denmark and Germany and here in the States were messing around with quantum mechanics and quantum theory. And way back then, these guys started putting forward this idea that consciousness is central to reality. It's not this illusory thing. It's not this emergent property. It really is a fundamental part of what it means to be in the world. And so they kind of express this in quantum mechanic terms, which were difficult to grasp. And these ideas have sort of been buried. And
What is quantum mechanics exactly?
It's just a study of subatomic particles, but there's these principles in quantum mechanics that fundamentally kind of affect the way we see the world. I'm sure folks have heard of the double slit experiment.
Yes.
In quantum entanglement, these ideas that don't really make any sense. They don't match what we experience at the macro level. but are probably actually pretty fundamental to what consciousness is. And so the neuroscientists have like completely, and I don't want to make enemies, but have like completely failed at exploring consciousness. The theoretical physicists are really the only people nowadays doing kind of the exciting work. And so you asked me what my theory is. I'll tell you one of the popular theories right now, which I think is really cool and worthy of exploration. It's called orchestrated objective reduction. And it really just is this idea that, again, our brain is like a receiver, that there are structures in our neurons in our brain that can tap into something, whether that's a quantum field or whether they're entangled with something somewhere else in the universe. They can tap into something, they can resonate literally with something, and that is where consciousness comes from. It's still not a full explanation, but it's testable. We can actually do experiments to test it, which is what makes it exciting.
What kind of experiments can you do?
Well, one of the best ways to define consciousness, I think, is there's clearly something different between someone who's lying on an operating table about to be put under with anesthesia. They're very different. Their experience of life is very different from someone 40 minutes later under general anesthesia, right? And so that's actually a good way to define consciousness. Sorry, there's birds near me.
Okay.
An experience of an outer world that you feel like you are experiencing in your body, and an experience of an inner world. You can sort of hear your thoughts. You can see visual memories inside your mind. You can't do that when anesthetized. And so that's actually a good starting point. So it's no surprise that an anesthesiologist actually came up with this theory. And he believed, for a variety of reasons, that these structures called microtubules inside your neurons, which are really, I mean, they're so small, they're difficult to study, but we know a lot more about them nowadays. They vibrate. They literally resonate. They have these little beads that have sort of like a plus and minus sign. So they're a little binary system, like a computer, like a spinning hard drive has binary magnetizations, and they can flip. And so they're sort of an information encoding system possibly, and they can resonate. And so his idea was, this is a type of structure needed to do what another gentleman, Roger Penrose, a physicist, Nobel Prize winner, thought was that we were tapped into these quantum fields. So he said, maybe this is the structure. Well, if it is the structure, anesthesia should affect the microtubule, because anesthesia turns consciousness off. If anesthesia doesn't affect the microtubule, then the microtubule is not it. And so they've done lots of studies now showing that the microtubule is definitely where general anesthesia works, where it binds to turn consciousness. Yeah.
Interesting. And so does this apply to like what, because obviously like animals have consciousness. Do they get to a point where they go like this, like, insects do not, plants do not? Like, is there like a demarcating kind of line here where they go, this is everything that's conscious, this is everything that's not?
Probably not. I think it'd be more reasonable, and I hate thinking of things this way, but to visualize it like a spectrum. There are single cell creatures, protozoa, that display evidence of being able to form memories, but they're a single cell. They don't have neurons.
Yeah.
So how do they form memories? Well, they do have microtubules. In fact, all cells have microtubules. They're highly conserved. That means evolution never gets rid of them. They're present in everything. And so it could be that you have some really simple, feeble form of consciousness, maybe not sentience, obviously, but the ability to form simple memories and things at the level of a single cell. And then it scales up from there plants might have some type of consciousness, animals, obviously humans.
But I guess you can't anesthetize a plant?
I guess not. I mean, there'd really be no way to know if it worked, right? Because we can't ask them. We can't look for visible signs of a plant being conscious or non-conscious. Maybe if we gave a plant anesthesia, something would happen. I mean, there's just no way to really test it.
Or a way to give it to them, I guess. And so what about like animals? Like if you were to anesthetize like a fish?
Yep. Well, so a lot of these experiments are done in mice. So basically I think people don't realize how creative scientists have to get to answer these types of questions, because it's not like you can zoom in with a microscope, video microscope to a microtubule. I mean, these are really small structures that are difficult to understand. So what they do is they actually administer a drug to the mice that binds to microtubules. We know it binds to microtubules. And then we give them an anesthetic gas, and the gas doesn't work on the mice who got that drug. And so the idea is that the microtubules are the binding site. So we stuff all the binding sites up with this other drug, and now anesthetics don't work. So that's how we know the microtubules are fundamental to at least some aspect of consciousness.
Okay, and so now tell me, I guess, more about the book, the premise of it based off of...
Yeah, so I mean, I know people are probably pretty familiar with like simulation hypothesis and stuff like that. Yeah, and so all the many worlds theory, all of these ideas, which are pretty mainstream now, they come from these early experiments in quantum mechanics. So, you know, the double slit experiment, the whole idea is that if you are trying to figure out which slit a particle is passing through, it becomes a particle. If you're not measuring which slit it passes through, it's a wave, and it passes through both. And so the idea is that observation, measurement changes reality. And so you can kind of extrapolate this to like a video game analogy. Whereas, you know, if your character is looking at a castle on the horizon, it's very real to him. If he turns around, he just kind of feels like it's still behind him. But you and I know, since we're outside of the video game, we know that that castle doesn't exist anymore. It's stored on the hard drive when he's not looking at it. When he looks at it, his field of view pulls it back into reality. And so the double slit experiment kind of says, yeah, that's how the world works too. You know, when we look at a table, the table gets pulled into our reality. As long as someone is looking at the table or touching the table or hearing a sound of a cup, you know, or something blowing across the top of the table, as long as someone's aware of the table, it gets rendered into reality, just like a video game. And so I think that's pretty cool. I think that can take you to some weird places, though. So I just kind of wanted to explore all these scientists and see what they thought. And man, I don't know. I've been an atheist my whole life. There is something kind of spiritual and magical about this stuff. So that's sort of what the book explores. You know, what is consciousness? Could it be supernatural? Is it purely mechanistic, reductionist? What is it? So,
and what's your kind of, do you have a leaning here? And what's the general, like, I imagine most scientists are probably pretty atheist.
Yeah, definitely. Especially in neuroscience, I would say. Every field is a little different. Theoretical physics is sort of like the most, I would say, spiritual field of all the different sciences. Medicine's very atheist. That's my field. More scientific answer is that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. It does seem like maybe these microtubules are kind of functioning like an antenna or an information transfer system. And so that opens up all sorts of crazy possibilities that we would just have to speculate, you know, who knows. But it does sort of fit this idea of like, you know, a soul or a spirit kind of animating the body, which is of course exciting. I mean, one of the things about the microtubules, which is cool, is that they interact with light in a strange way. So you can shine like a laser on microtubules in a petri dish. And then when you remove the laser, they'll continue to glow for some time. They call it delayed luminescence. If you spray the microtubules with anesthesia, they don't do that anymore. So the point is that there's something, light is somehow involved in microtubules being related to consciousness. And that's interesting because photons can become entangled. And so now all of a sudden there's this sort of idea, you can kind of imagine a signal. You know, this is, sorry to go all over the place, but this
go ahead.
This was a big criticism of transmission theory in the 1900s because, so you're saying we're an antenna, like a radio receiver. Well, what's the signal? There's no radio waves coming out of your head, you know? And so now with entanglement, we can kind of say, well, there really could be a signal that's not detectable. You know, these structures, these crazy arrays in your brain could somehow be communicating with something, a field. You know, quantum field theory is like the newest, latest, and greatest thing, which I won't even pretend to understand, but they could be tapped into some source or signal, which is kind of a supernatural idea. You know, that's not really a scientific idea.
Sure.
So it's cool, though, that the new scientific theories are sort of getting
And
closer and closer to supernatural ideas.
and do you like test for this? Like, are you increasingly kind of testing for this stuff? And
What's that?
like, do you run experiments to try and like different experiments to try and prove or
Yeah,
disprove this?
I mean, I don't personally. There's not really a huge mainstream appetite for this stuff in the funding world. It's not exactly like a druggable target or like something
Sure.
that you could develop something around
There's
or
no money
whatever.
in this.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. But people are. I mean, so Stuart Hameroff is a big proponent of this. And I mentioned Roger Penrose and many others. Mike Weiss, he did the mouse experiment at Case Western. So there are, serious horsepower guys doing this stuff. It gets a little weird with quantum because no one really knows what it is. But we do know that the principles are sound. We know that quantum entanglement is real. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, I think more and more mainstream people are starting to suspect that it's not, we've been using the computer metaphor for the brain for a very long time. And it's not the right metaphor. It's not there's aspects of it that are like a computer. Neurons are like computer circuits, they're binary and analog switches. And so we can get pretty close to simulating a human with a computer. We know that nowadays with AI, but we cannot create an internal awareness with computation. It's something else. And so this is sort of, I think, the important part as AI is, getting more and more interesting and exciting, is that there is something different between a computational model and a self-aware organism. And that something that's probably related to quantum mechanics, but we don't know exactly yet.
So is there like some hope that like you could eventually make some sort of mechanism where people could communicate with one another? Like,
I mean,
like where do you see this potentially way
like
down the line?
Quantum technologies, you're asking?
Well, I guess just this theory of like how this kind of plays out.
I mean, so the whole consciousness thing, this is more of like a big question. It's not really a technological discussion. It's more like, who are we? Why are we here? Where do we come from? Kind of a thing. And it is interesting how much it kind of rhymes and rings true with some like supernatural descriptions of what human beings are. But there are quantum technologies. I mean, quantum computers are kind of like, I don't know, that might not be real. We'll see. That could just be a money grab. But
yeah, I follow. Well, I know Martin Shkreli. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's like, his whole thing right now is how he's like, all these quantum companies are total bullshit. He's like he like shorts all their stocks for like millions and millions of dollars. And his whole thing is he's just like, they're so full of shit. They're promising like all this stuff that does not exist. And it's just complete snake oil.
That's my gut feeling as well. So to hear someone who actually knows that stuff say that confirms my suspicion. It's it just isn't clear that it does anything useful, but there are quantum technologies that make sense. There's this idea of like quantum encryption, which is that if two particles are entangled, you can have a key at a receiver that you use to decrypt data that comes from a satellite. And if anyone tries to hack into that, it interrupts the entanglement and it doesn't work. So there's like some quantum technological applications, but I think it's a little bit beyond our grasp right now. I don't think quantum computation is going anywhere anytime soon.
Huh. And so this kind of stuff is kind of pulled you to be kind of more religious, spiritual, I guess?
Yeah, something. I mean, at least in my free time, I kind of like to explore these ideas. It's the thing, my whole life being an atheist, now I'm not 100% sure what I am, but the thing was, it was illogical because there was no mechanism. Like there wasn't an explanation that made sense to me. But when you start to now say like, all this time later, we're starting to see that there might be these structures in your brain that interact with the signal in the universe, that does start to sound a little bit like the spirit animating the flesh, right? Excuse me.
Sure.
And so there are these kind of rhymes. You look at the importance of belief in quantum states, and that the belief of an observer influences the outcome of the system, and these different things. Entanglement, that particles can be entangled across any distance and have instantaneous information transfer.
Any distance?
Any distance, yeah. As
That's
far as we know.
provable?
Well, I mean, we can only take particles so far away from each other, but from one side of the earth to the other, it's instantaneous. So the assumption, the belief is that could be on the opposite sides of the universe.
Huh.
Yeah, and so Einstein had a big problem with this because it violated special relativity, because it means something's traveling faster than the speed of light. And so that's something that's still debated today, but there's no doubt that entanglement, I mean, the 2022 Nobel Prize was specifically for experimental demonstration of entanglement. So it's true.
And they were able to demonstrate this?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
What was the experiment?
I mean, so they've started with things that were super close together. They've done things that are like fiber optic cables, many, many miles long. And so if one photon goes left at an interferometer, the other one will go right. Right. If you force one to go right, the other one will go left. They're locked. They're like mirror images of each other.
Gotcha.
You can change the spin of one photon in China, and its mirror image in LA will flip. Right. So if you manipulate one, the other one is manipulated as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems to be pretty much, it's proven at this point. That's not even really something that's debated. People debate the interpretation of the double slit experiment still.
What is the, I thought that was kind of settled. What is the debate there?
I think it is kind of settled, but so the idea is
tell people what it is for people who have never heard of it.
Sure. So like you
can watch like videos. There's videos on YouTube of people like doing it. So you can see it.
Yeah. You can have like a metal plate with two vertical slits in it. It's like two capital I's without the, and so if you beam, let's do matter. Matter is a better example. So if you shoot electrons or even molecules, you could have like 100 atoms of carbon in this ball. If you shoot them at the slit, and if you don't measure which slit they're passing through, they'll pass through both and interact with each other. They'll travel like a wave. And so physical matter will travel like a wave. It will hit the two slits. It will go from being just one wave to two waves because it's passing through two slits. And those two waves will interact with each other. It's just if you drop two rocks in a pond, the two wavefronts will hit each other and they'll make a sort of interference pattern. If you try to measure which slit that carbon ball is passing through, it stops acting like a wave and it acts like a particle, acts like a bullet. And so it will travel through one slit or the other. And so what it looks like is that if you are trying to locate or interact with something, it becomes matter in the way we understand it. If you're not looking at it, if you're not observing it, it's more like energy. And so
this is going to be a really stupid question probably,
Yeah.
but if you're not looking at it, then how do you know it's behaving?
Okay, great. No, that's a great question actually. So there's a screen on the back of the lab, after this wave moves through the double slits, there's a reactive film. And so when something hits it, it leaves a mark.
Gotcha.
And so we can see the pattern that forms, and it forms an interference pattern, meaning it's a wave. But if we actually try to determine which slit it passes through, that pattern goes away and it just forms two vertical bars.
Like, because I'm sure that there's like cameras that can kind of, special cameras. Like, does it know that it's being, I'm referring to it as an it, but I don't even know the proper terminology here. But it's like, if you record it with a camera, does it behave the same way versus if a human is observing it?
Yes. Yeah. If at any point it becomes known, recorded, like saved somewhere, which slits that particle is traveling through, it behaves like a particle. You can put the cameras there, not plug them in. If you're not measuring it, it behaves like a wave. But as soon as you record, if you record that data, it behaves like a particle.
What is the explanation for that?
Well, so at first the pushback was, there's something about the measurement process that's interacting with it. Like if you think about what a camera is, it's, your photons are flying around the room. And so you're trying to get a photon to hit one of these carbon molecule so you can record where it is, right? And so there's something to that. Like maybe the act of measurement is causing it to become matter. But the thing is, you can put the cameras or the detectors after the slits. So, okay, so if it does the same thing. So the thing is, well, now you have a new problem. Now there's a retro causality violation, because if you measure them after the decision point, how do they go back in time and decide to become matter, right? And so they've come up with all sorts of passive sensors which don't interact. And there's some good pushback. It's still hotly debated. This is, I mean, again, I'm not a physicist. I do neuroscience research, but my understanding is that most people kind of ascribe to, it's called the Copenhagen interpretation, which is what I've been talking about, which is when you observe something, it becomes physical. Things aren't locally real
right
until they're observed.
That's a trip.
Which is where the video game analogy starts to make a lot of sense.
I guess, but then I'm like, I have this table right here. I'm like, I leave for the night. I know this table's not going anywhere, but I guess you're saying, do you know that?
Well, I mean, your character in a video game would feel the same way if they were conscious, right? Like if Link was sitting at a table, to him, he can't put his hand through it. It's physical, right? But when he leaves that door, you and I know that table's not there. It's stored on our computer.
But I know that this table is here.
Not when you're not in the room.
Well, you essentially you're saying I can't know for certain that this table is here.
Exactly, because it is there when you're there.
And if I send anybody in here to go check, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, the table's there," but they're like, they didn't know that it wasn't here. And if I if I have my Ring camera, the moment I turn that on, then the table just reappears.
The problem might be the word real, because it's like it is real. It's just, what does the table look like when no one's observing it? Well, it's probably not something you would recognize. It's information. Just as in a computer game, like the parts of the computer game that aren't rendered on your screen are stored as zeros and ones until they're rendered, you know?
Right.
So it's real. Real's not really the right word, but it's weird. It's bizarre.
All right. The phone lines are open, everybody. 1-888-949-2969. Also, if you want to call in, Mark needs to leave in like 20 minutes, and then I'll have to be answering the calls, which is generally a shit show. So if you want to call in and just wait on hold, that is much more preferable. If you were planning on calling in, call in and wait versus making me pick up, because it's a real pain. All right, let's go to our first call. Please unmute yourselves in a prompt fashion as I ask you every week. Hello! Nope, that didn't work. What the hell? That did not work. Let's try this one more time. Please unmute yourself, people. And then always what happens is I go to unmute. Oh, here we go. Hello! You're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, yo? First time watcher and caller.
Nice.
But I'm really interested in what y'all are talking about with the double slit experiment and consciousness in general. And this is something I've gotten definitely real wrapped up in the past, like, couple months. And thinking about this type of stuff in philosophy. It's fascinating because I think genuinely consciousness has a very meaningful effect on our reality, and I think everybody's perceived consciousness is sort of melding together in order to create reality, essentially. But I think that kind of falls into the double slit, you know. I'm sorry if that sounds off topic.
It's pretty
running
on
around a
topic.
bunch today.
It makes me think of something. If I could give you a metaphor and tell me what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, one of the things that bothers me about this idea is that it kind of lends itself to like The Secret, right? Manifestation. Like if I just really believe, then I could, you know, fly away, right? And so, but you know that's not right, because I could blindfold you and ask you to walk across the room and you could really believe your path is clear. But if I put a box in front of you, you're going to trip on it, right? Even though you fully believe your path is clear, you will trip over that box. And so I think it really is not it's not like a video game that we play, you know, Legend of Zelda. It's more like like a massively multiplayer game. Like it's like we share a server. And so I can update your reality, you can update my reality. And so there is something to this co-creation idea. That's what the word people are starting to use for this idea that, reality is sort of real, but we sort of co-create. I don't know. I don't know what any of it means. It's all very confusing. But for the double slit experiment, this idea of it being our world being like a massively multiplayer game, it's kind of a good analogy. It's kind of appealing. It's hard not to think about it like that.
I definitely agree. I mean, I don't know. I'm still fairly young. I mean, I'm only 22, but I've gotten interested in this type of stuff, and it feels, it's weird, but I do think to an extent, not perceiving things can also change them in their own respect. I've been thinking a lot about the Mandela effect. Like the Mandela effect personally, I think to an extent, like when people push thoughts out of their head and like people stop thinking about things, I think there's an opportunity for them to change. And I feel like it's happened to me personally a couple times, not with anything in particular, but it's just like weird things. So I think ultimately everything is open to change. And like something being isolated, like, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? You have to think about that. And, talking about the consciousness of, anything, plants, if that tree falls and dies, does it have a consciousness? What does perceive it, and how does it change over time?
It does not make a sound. I know that bothers people, but it does not make a sound if no one's around to hear it.
It's crazy that how old is that proverb?
See, I would disagree with that because you have to think about what is in the forest. Because if you just have a forest with, trees, like that's not a real forest. You have animals, you have bugs, you have funguses, other types of things.
I would change
what is their consciousness,
If there's an ear in the forest, then it makes a sound. But in the absence of ears and cochlea, it doesn't make a sound. That's
how old is that proverb?
I don't know.
You don't know? It's
I'm not sure.
It's like that's
personally.
I mean, I feel like that's like one of those things. Probably like hundreds or thousands of years old, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, it's definitely got to be pretty old. I mean, but it does just get to this idea that sound is an experience in your mind. It's not something fundamental to reality. I mean, compression waves maybe are, but compression waves aren't sound until they hit a cochlea, right? So, but to your point, yeah, if there's a squirrel in the forest and it hears it, then yeah, it makes it sound. Absolutely.
And to an extent, I think, I don't know. Consciousness is a weird thing. I do think to an extent a bit of everything has some level of it. Obviously some things more than others, but it is weird. And I feel like things are open to like strange change.
Yeah.
Sorry to rhyme it, but I don't know. It's just weird stuff that I've personally experienced.
It's giving me a bit of a headache. I'm not going to lie. Just having this discussion, trying to wrap my head around all this stuff.
Well, that's not good.
I apologize.
No. You got to admit it's better than just like nihilism, right? At least maybe there's something out there.
The nothing matters.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of on that tip at the beginning of the show, but in a different form. All right. Anything else, everyone?
No, not really. I love y'all's show.
Thanks, man.
It was fun.
Appreciate it. All right, let's this is a lot. All right, let's go. Let's take a call here. Again, make sure to get your calls in. Get on hold before 9 o'clock because Mark has to leave. Hello.
Hey, what's up, Danny? It's Conspiracy Extremist. How's it going?
Conspiracy Extremist. What's up, man?
Not a lot. I'm gotta say, this guest is fascinating. I appreciate kind of mixing it up a little and
yeah,
the typical stuff.
Shout out.
My question is, I have my position. So I'm a Christian, I guess you can call me that, or some people don't. But my stance has always been in like humans versus angels versus God are in different dimensions. Now, when you're talking about the double slit experiment, I've always been really fascinated about this. I'm retarded, so it's very hard for me to comprehend it. Do you think that this could have anything to do with some sort of interdimensional crossing over in any way?
I don't know. I mean, so that's one of the things I like about the microtubule idea is that it kind of gets at this idea that maybe like we're tapped into something, right? And that maybe the way we're tapped into that thing changes, like when we're asleep, for example, or you could say maybe while you're praying. It's kind of the idea. I talked about this on Mark's show actually, that the way a radio receiver works, I didn't know this. I found this out recently, is you have like a copper wire of a certain length. And when you turn the radio knob, you change the length of that wire. You wrap it around the knob or you unwrap it, right?
Okay.
And so you're going to catch whatever waves are that wavelength. So whatever the length of the wire is, you're going to catch those waves. And so just changing that length of a wire a little bit, you get a completely different station. And it's interesting because the microtubules kind of work like that. They can change what portion of their length resonates with something. We don't know with what. And so it is kind of this idea like they're kind of tapped into something. And so I think that sort of fits these ideas that you're talking about, like that somewhere else there's this source, right? This other realm, this other whatever you want to call it, that we're sort of tapped into as physical beings, but we're half physical, we're half something else, right? So we're somewhere in the middle. I don't know. Again, this is wild speculation.
How much like kind of supernatural stuff do you look into? And like, you're not even necessarily supernatural, but like you hear those stories of like two sets of twins, and one will be like, the other side of the world, and something bad, like they break their leg and the other one feels it. And they're like, they knew, like that must somehow align with all of this.
Yeah, it's got to, right? I mean, I don't really look into it very deeply, but other than what you just said, like it does feel like maybe this could, I mean, even like the DMT stuff, this feels like, is DMT doing the opposite of anesthesia, right? Is anesthesia turning these microtubules off and DMT is cranking them up? I mean, tryptophan is the primary residue of microtubules, which is pretty much an analog to DMT. So, yeah, it could be that we're just sort of changing the station, and I think you're kind of pointing at, it's almost like a telepathy sort of idea that if we kind of get twins might be sort of tuned into the exact same frequency, right? I don't know. I mean, this is all kind of crazy talk, but at the same time, as the years go by, science kind of seems to be bringing us closer to these types of ideas instead of further away. So who knows?
Yeah. So my thought was a conscious. You mentioned having like humans being sentient. It almost feels like it's I wouldn't say a different dimension, but it's what separates us from animals, and it's almost like a tool that we have to maybe attempt to cross into a higher dimension, such as you mentioned DMT, where that may be an accelerant or something that helps us go further, where we can attempt to have different experiences with a higher dimension. And so I think that's why consciousness is very valuable. And when you're talking about the double slit experiment, if you're not looking at it, recording it, it acts one way versus the other. I think it almost seems like it's a more interdimensional experience. Like if we were to try to interact with a two-dimensional, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but if we interact with a two-dimensional world, they're only going to see two dimensions of us. So I think that almost connects to what you're talking about with this experiment.
Yeah, maybe, man. I mean, beats me. I don't know. But, it does get me thinking about like there's a subgroup of near-death experiencers who have been blind their whole lives, and they have like visual near-death experiences. And there is sort of this idea, like when we see something in our mind's eye, like we're not really seeing something, right? Well, but what are we? It's something. It's like sight. It's close. And so there is this sort of idea that there's like this, maybe like a more disembodied spiritual aspect to us, right? Which could sort of exist, like you're saying, in another dimension, whatever that means. I have no idea. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'm open-minded to that. I don't think that's crazy. I think it's just language. There's certain words that scientists don't like. That would be one of them, right? Like another dimension. But I mean, I don't know. We're finding quantum processing tubes in our mind that emit light unless they're anesthetized, and they resonate with some invisible field. I mean, we're way out into the unknown world. So anything's possible, I guess.
Hell yeah.
I'm not
All right,
really
well,
answering your
Danny,
question. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer. So sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are answers. So yeah, I'll let you move to the next guest. Danny, do you mind if I plug something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a new YouTube channel. It's called Despotic Ambitions on YouTube, and it's like which I do have questions for you, Danny, but I know it's off topic. But it's like AI visuals on mini documentaries. Despotic Ambitions on YouTube. It's YouTube friendly anti-Semitic content.
Nice. All right, everybody.
Really,
for those inclined, go check it out. Conspiracy Extremists. Trevor, are there other like you were saying they react to anesthesia? Do they react to other things?
It just really hasn't been studied very much. I mean, microtubules have a function outside of consciousness. They're like little roads for these proteins that literally walk. There's amazing videos if people want to look up. It's called vesicular trafficking. Excuse me. And these little microtubules these little motor proteins walked on the microtubules. So we've always thought of them as sort of passive structures like roads, it's not that interesting. So we haven't really studied them that much. I mean, this anesthesia study is one of the newer studies that shows that it's unbelievable. We didn't know how anesthesia worked before. We didn't know what it bound to. We had ideas, but we didn't know. And so
when was this done?
I think this is a 3-year-old study.
They didn't know how anesthesia worked up until 3 years ago?
No, there was a lot of theories. Like they thought it might have to do with GABA. They thought it might affect ion channels and synaptic membranes, but no, they didn't know. They just know if it worked or not, right?
Yeah, they just know it works and they know how to not kill people. And
yeah, exactly. It's very clinical, it was a very clinical understanding, which is all you need if you're an anesthesiologist. But for folks interested in consciousness, it's like, well, how does it work? This is the obvious question, right? And so it seems like it turns these microtubules off. It turns the antenna off, which is like, whoa, that's just kind of a shocking thing. So no, I mean, no one's done the study. Like no one's seen if epithelone B, which is the microtubule binding drug, prevents DMT from working. That would be interesting. No one's really studied other than in one experiment in a petri dish how light is related to microtubule consciousness. So no, this is all brand new.
Huh. All right.
I mean, people are working on it.
Yeah, people are working on it, but it seems like not that many people.
No, not that many people. I mean, there's some new money going into this stuff in the Alzheimer's research area because the primary biomarker of Alzheimer's disease is a microtubule stabilizing protein. It's called tau. And so that should have raised a flag decades ago for us that the main protein, the dysfunctional protein that is related to Alzheimer's disease binds to the microtubules. So the microtubules are obviously important, right? So there is some new money going into that area, but it's not quite, what you'd like to see. So if there's any researchers out there, they have a good idea, they think they can get a grant, I hope they do.
Yeah, go for it. Do you think they'll cure Alzheimer's at any point?
As long as we can get out of this current obsession we have with amyloid drugs, maybe. But yeah, right now, everyone just wants to get a drug across the line, and they have recently with these anti-amyloid drugs, but they just don't work very good, and it's certainly not a cure. So I don't know.
They're just better than whatever else is available.
It's like a little bit better, not even much better, but
not
yeah.
much. All right, let's take another call here. One moment, please. We've got Aaron. Are you there?
Hey, how's it going, Danny?
Hey, what's up, man?
Good. So I was just curious if you thought that, so like a theory I've heard recently is that there's a field, that consciousness is a field, kind of like a Higgs field,
Yeah.
And would you say consciousness is alive? Is this something that's alive? Because everything is made out of things that are not alive, but I think we have the wrong definition of what's alive, So I don't think consciousness is alive, and I think it can inhabit anything, not just humans. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Beats me. I don't know. There's this guy, Federico Fagin, He invented the first microprocessor. He's actually one of the first guys to work on AI. That's how he thinks of consciousness, as this field that like he's tapped into. But is it alive? I mean, I guess that just comes down to a definition of words thing, you know, that it's not alive like in the traditional scientific definition of what life is, right? But I don't know. It certainly
It's
seems
something.
part of what makes us alive, or at least it's part of the human experience. I guess another interesting question is, can you be living without consciousness, right? Like an NPC.
Yeah, so
the word we love.
I think so. I think nothing is alive. I think we have the wrong definition of what's alive. And if consciousness is so inherent in the universe, because any kind of near-death experience or any spiritual journey any culture has gone, they all say like, you're one with the universe, and you know you're with the cosmos. And so if it's so inherent, that I don't think I don't, you know, I'm 6 beers in, guys, so I couldn't finish my sentence. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I get it, man. This is heavy stuff.
I mean, I'm 0
Difficult
beers
to
in,
explain
and
because in
I'm
your
struggling.
head it somewhat makes sense, you know.
Sure.
But I just think we just have the wrong definition of alive, because if consciousness is not alive, and then why would it only inhabit alive things? I think it could also inhabit things that are not alive, you know.
Maybe so.
Like you think like dirt has consciousness?
Well, you know, I listened to this guy the other day. He was like a spiritual, like a channeler or something like that. And he said he used to be wind in one of his past lives.
He was just wind? Like all of it?
He said he used to be wind. Probably not all. I'm guessing somewhere, but he said he was wind.
I wonder how that works. Like, are you like wind in like a city? Or like you have like a kind of geographical boundary where you're all that wind, or you like
certain zip code?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to wrap my mind around being wind.
Yeah, this sounds a little. Most things aren't too out there.
How many beers deep was that guy?
Get in there.
I just cracked open the 7th one, I guess.
No, how many beers deep was the wind guy?
Well, you know, he was a real estate agent, and he dressed like he lived in the desert or something.
That's a weird move from a cool breeze to a real estate agent.
I know. He's probably like, you're showing a house, and he goes, "This house I used to be this house."
Yeah, but I love this conversation, though. It's really cool. So
yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Anything else, Aaron?
Yeah.
I'll let you get back to your beers.
Yeah, I guess I got to get back to the beers, man. Thank you.
I just kind of sort of tangentially riffing off what he was saying. I do think there's something to like these old kind of religious ideas that to be alive, you have to be, it's both spirit and body, right? You're something embodied in a physical form. The new age stuff, it just loses me. This idea that like everything's spiritual and we could float around and we were wind once. I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
But this idea of like a physical being being able to tap into something, that makes a little bit more sense to me.
Sure. What about people who are like in a coma and then they come out and they had some kind of memory of something that happened?
While they're in the coma? Yeah, it's a great, I don't know. A memory of physical things that happened to
like,
them?
Yeah, they were like, you know, in a coma. They never came out of their coma, but they're like,
I guess you could kind of like
have some memory of their surroundings, or like someone visited them and they're like, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, you have that when you're asleep to an extent. Like during certain stages of sleep, you have environmental monitoring turned on. You can like hear and smell and stuff. But so it could be something like that, where you're maybe like the dials just turned a little bit. You know,
sure.
so
It's like it is almost, there is a spectrum of this essentially.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
where you're
that,
like,
I mean, that's why sleep's fascinating, because it's like, do we go somewhere? I mean, some of the studies that have been coming out recently are showing that, you know, the brain when it's on some of these drugs, I think particularly the 5-MeO DMT, it looks like you're asleep. Like when you go to this, when you're in the trip, right? Your brain
Yeah.
looks identical to someone who's sleeping. So the idea is sort of like you're dreaming while awake. And it kind of raises this question, like, are we actually kind of going somewhere when we're asleep? Is it just purely like hallucinatory? Is it a hallucination? I don't know.
How much research is being done on DMT?
The DMT stuff is picking up more than the just like pure consciousness stuff, especially in England. There's quite a bit of research going on. It's pretty cool. A lot in mice mostly, but also humans.
They are doing human studies of DMT.
Yeah. I think I've even seen one of these sleep studies in humans where they do EEG monitoring when the person's awake, asleep, and then awake on DMT. I don't remember the study title, but anyway, I think because at first they did it in mice. That mice that were awake on DMT looked like they were asleep on an EEG. But I think they've redone that in humans, which is, man, that's pretty cool. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It does kind of seem to apply. You can turn that knob. You can change what you're dialed into in your mind, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those mice must be blasting the fuck off. They must be like, what?
Hey, of all the mice studies to get enrolled in, though, that's probably not.
Yeah, I guess it's better than just getting fucking electrocuted a bunch. And seeing how that goes. All right, let's take another call here. We got Chris. Chris, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
What's up? You're on with Trevor. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm just calling about because I heard your guest talk about if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
Sure.
And he said no, and he said people might have a hard time with that. But it seems to me that, again, he's kind of it's just a definitional game. Like, it sounds like your guest, no pun intended, sounds like your guest.
I'm here, Chris. You can talk to me. I'm here.
Yeah, he's right. He's right there.
Sounds like your guest is saying that a sound wave would be created, but there's no sound if nobody hears it, which seems kind of like a silly.
I guess the whole
observable,
game, right? The observation, I guess, is the main component.
Yeah. A compression wave would be created, but sound's an experience in your mind, right?
Yeah, but why not just call it a sound wave? Because that's what people know it as, right?
You could. I mean, it's fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings.
So it's just a definition game. You're just saying that sound is only when somebody hears it, right? So but most people, when you hear that idiom, like, is a sound created by a tree falling, that, of course, obviously it creates a sound wave. People, I mean, that's the question, right? Like,
yeah, but it's
one of those things though, where you literally go, well, if there's nobody around, the whole thing is you go, how do you know? Because
it's not necessary, and it's not even necessarily a sound wave. It's a wave in the air. It's sound if there's an ear around, you know.
A wave that would be perceived by ears if ears were around. So you're saying that, like, there's no sound unless there's someone to perceive it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if there's no one to perceive it, then there's no one to perceive it. But that doesn't mean that, like, if I was there, I would hear it, and if I'm there, the wave would still be there. Just I wouldn't hear it, right? So.
Yeah. That's all good. That's true.
It just seems like nobody would have a difficulty understanding that, right? That the question is whether or not the wave is there at all when the tree falls, if nobody's there, right?
Yeah, the wave's definitely there. But I think the important part is that sound. That's an experience that minds have. That's not a
right. But Danny was kind of getting at the question of, like, whether or not the wave would actually be there, because that's a separate question, which like a philosophical question that people might entertain.
Well, here's a really dumb question: how do you even know that the wave is there?
Yeah, that would be the question, but that's a separate question, right? I mean,
I'm not that smart. I'm sorry that I didn't ask the right questions here.
No, it just sounds like that's what's being asked when that idiom is being stated, right?
Well, it's the idiom is not if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound wave? Who's ever heard that before?
I mean, I sort of think it is.
I don't think the Chinese are saying
it's just ambiguity of language, right?
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
you win, Chris.
Anyway, I just thought
Chris,
I'd give my 2
Chris an
cents.
award.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, I appreciate it.
All right, later, Chris.
That is definitely a thing that people don't like. It is a language thing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a question like, is an apple red if no one's around to see it? And again, no, it's not. But there's still light emitted in a certain spectrum, even if no one's around to see it. Maybe. I mean, like you guys were saying, that's a whole other question. But red is an experience in your mind. The experience of red, the sound of a tree falling, only occurs in a brain, as far as we know. So yeah, there's got to be a brain around.
Man, it's crazy. This is like people's jobs to just like sit around like fucking stoned college students and just
It's not very many people.
Not many people. Good. I hope it's not too many people's jobs. Although maybe
that's like the goal.
Yeah,
it's not even my job. My job's not this at all.
Yeah, it's not even your job. But this is like real, just like sitting around with a bong when you're fucking 19, just being like.
Definitely.
All right, let's go to Frank here. Oh. Frank, you there?
Danny, you have some rough callers. A drunk guy and a contrarian.
That's a standard Monday night on this show.
Be nice to us, Frank, please.
No, I love it. Thank you. I'm glad everyone calls in, especially me, because I'm the best.
Frank is the man. Can confirm.
So, regarding life. All right, so there's solid, liquid, and gas, and just recently it came out there's plasma. It's kind of like this material that floats in between the atoms, I guess. It's kind of like the catalyst or the intermediate between the atoms. And now we're talking about life, and life is like, it's amazing because it could be an element, actually. I mean, the issue with life is that, elements just kind of like go like the breeze, and, heat comes and goes, and, thermodynamics and all that other stuff. The issue with life is, as an element, is that it's kind of like ever growing, and it needs to be kept in check by life. So as much as I want to believe that life is an element, like kind of like the movie The Fifth Element, it's very difficult to do that. And then you got like people who are, that really think that like a lightning bolt hit a rock and like turned the rock into like a bacteria or like a dog or something like that. There's some agnostics and there's some atheists that are like huffing their own farts so much that like they want to spite God so much that they're just like, no, God didn't make life. There is no God, et cetera, et cetera. Where like, there is no explanation for it. Even if you do the whole panspermia theory, where a asteroid with bacteria came to Earth and seeded Earth, that means that there's still life out there. Who created that life? Unless of course life is an element.
Panspermia, I mean, the whole thing was the discoverer of DNA felt like it proved creationists right because he found a programmable genetic code inside cells. So he came up with panspermia to sort of.
What is panspermia for us dum-dums?
So the guy who discovered DNA, Francis Crick and then James Watson, but Francis Crick came up with
big
this idea.
acid guys, right?
Big acid guys came up with this idea that DNA or life, some aspect, either precursor to DNA or something that came after, came from another planet and crashed into the Earth, and that's how it got here. Maybe from Mars, who knows? And but yeah, you're right. It just kicks the can down the road to, well, where'd that life come from? So yeah, that's a big problem for science. Is what you're describing is abiogenesis, the emergence of life from non-life. There's not really a lot of good theories for that. So, but anyway, it's I'm not really sure if you weren't asking me anything. I'm just commenting on that. It's a good point.
Well, I mean, I kind of came in late to the program. I mean, were we originally talking about Epstein's list, or are we just so far off base that we got into universal truths?
We're just chopping it up about.
Man,
honestly, I was trying to like actually say what we were talking about. And I'm like, I don't even think I can explain what we've even been talking about, to be honest. Trevor.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess
Yeah.
that's it.
It's very.
Thanks for letting me call in.
My pleasure. Good talking to you. Frank, everybody. By the way, so Mark had to go. So if you call in, there's no Mark now. So if you don't get through, you'll just have to keep trying. But we're gonna wrap this up kind of soon. All right, let's see what Slav has to say. This is probably gonna be nutty.
I think Frank would like my book. Get my book, Frank.
Frank, get the book. Slav, what's up, man?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, for the guest, first off, Jesus loves you and will always accept you when you come around to him.
Thanks, man.
Letting you know that.
I'm just about all the way there, so I appreciate it.
Hey, some people, their journeys at a different pace. Some are fast, some are slow.
I'm
But he loves us all in the end.
I'm going for deathbed repentance just to cover my bases.
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Danny would say that as a Jew.
You're Jewish.
There's no such thing, dude. Jews ain't real, bro. They all died in like 365 AD.
I'm gonna be Jew
You're
for
just a
Jesus. I'm gonna be
Khazarian.
a Jew for Jesus right at the last moment. I go, it's gotta get me covered
Yeah.
here. Allah's cool too.
So I had two questions. One, do you wash your legs?
Do I wash?
You
my
wash
leg?
your legs. Yeah, this is a big philosophical discussion that we've had on this show.
I feel like I should say yes because this is in public.
I
but
do not wash my legs.
I really think about it. I
Full
guess
disclosure, I don't wash my legs. I let gravity, and you're a man of science, so
Yeah,
maybe
sure,
you can
gravity.
have some perspective on this. But I soap up the top, and then the soapy water, much like a car wash, flows over my legs and does
lower.
the work.
I would say I get the upper legs, just not the
Yeah, I
lower
get the
legs.
upper legs. No, nothing below the knee.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Okay.
so.
There we go. One of my people. I love to hear it.
All right. So you guys were talking earlier about the guy who discovered DNA, and it was actually related to the question I was calling in about. So you're a neuroscientist, and you know that guy who discovered DNA, he recently got into trouble. Well, I guess like a few years ago. As a neuroscientist,
What'd
do
he do?
you
What'd he
see-
do?
Well, this is what the question is about. As a neuroscientist, do you see any marked differences between the different breeds of humans, like the sub-Saharan, or how the Jews are more predisposed to schizophrenia? Because the guy who discovered DNA
Is that
said
true?
That there is.
Are Jews more predisposed to schizophrenia?
Yes, you guys.
Man, I
yeah,
see. I'm right around Madison Square Garden. I see a lot of what I would deem to be schizophrenic people, and none of them appear Jewish to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's.
I
true.
mean, I'm
It's
sure
like
there
an
are
actual.
I don't know.
It's a market gene.
Not my area really, but I'm sure there are biological differences between groups of some kind, good and bad. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the discoverer of DNA said. That's what he got in trouble for, and he got stripped of all of his Nobel titles.
Is that true? They took all his
I
Nobel
heard
prizes
about
away.
that. Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, well, because I mean, like for instance, do you think that the sub-Saharan possesses the same level of consciousness as somebody who's like Nordic or Neanderthal derived? Because I don't believe in single origin theory of human. Like I didn't come from no monkey.
Right. I mean, I guess, yeah. We can't even really measure consciousness, so there'd be no way to know. But
It sounds like you did come from a monkey, Slav. You don't even speak.
Look at
English
yourself,
that
bro.
well. What's that?
Look at yourself.
What about me?
You don't wash your legs. Monkeys don't even wash their legs.
Yeah, they do. Monkeys go through like with a they wash other people's legs. They're going in there and they're like getting it all out of there. If anything, this is higher level behavior on our parts, on mine and Trevor's parts. If anything, you are below us.
So what is it with this whole evolution thing? Do you believe in evolution? How they taught us in the textbooks?
Not in its current form, no.
What's your main issue with it?
Me or Slav?
You, Trevor.
Well, I mean, I think they kind of use it as a way to explain the origin of life, and it isn't. Evolution doesn't say anything about abiogenesis. It just explains how we might get one species from another. And so, yeah, I could see speciation through evolution makes sense. You can observe natural selection, but the idea that random mutation is the driver is not correct. It's just not a powerful enough mover to create speciation. And even like the mainstream evolutionary biologists are starting to say this. So we don't have a complete picture. We don't know what is the driver to create speciation. It's not random mutation.
Yeah. All right, Slav, I gotta let you go, man.
Hey.
Hold on. Let me see if I can take this call here. Sorry, I don't have. I just missed it. We lost Mark. Oh, hold on. And we lost. Are you there, Trevor? Can I hear you? No, I cannot hear Trevor. What just happened? What the hell just happened? Hold on. Oh, hold on. Sorry. This is what happens when Mark. What the hell? Sorry, 1 second here. Why won't? Oh, here we go. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry about that. This is what happens when Mark leaves. Everything goes to everything goes to shit. All right, phone lines will be open for a couple more minutes if anybody wants to call in quickly. Otherwise, Trevor, where can people find you? Oh, actually, here's a call. Hold that thought.
Yeah, sounds good.
Let me see if I can answer this here. Hello, one moment.
Yo,
please.
man, fuck yeah.
Yeah, 1 second
What's
here.
up?
I gotta just
Yep.
1 sec. I gotta merge you over to the main show here.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. It's sorry about that. All right, you're on. Go ahead. Are you there, caller? Oh, no, hold on. Sorry.
I hope he asks me any more about my shower habits.
Your what habits?
I don't want any more questions about my shower habits.
Oh, showering habits.
Yo.
Caller, are you there?
Yo, I'm here, bud.
Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, this is Tom from California. Calling back again. Really enjoyed the show. I sent my buddy the link just now. Hopefully he's going to hear me fucking jacking off with you guys. Dude, me and him were fucking just talking about the whole fucking Maxwell thing this morning about how like it's really surprising how they just lost the list of people. Like they said they had it, they didn't have it.
Lost what now? Sorry, my fucking audio is all crazy. It's like
You're fine. I'll talk a little slower.
No, I have this insane
but
echo.
Yeah. So like I was watching Fox News this morning, and they were asking a lady about like, hey, when's the list going to come out? And she said, oh, they thought they had the list, but it turned out we don't have the list
Oh, you're
anymore.
talking about the Epstein thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Epstein ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking crazy. It randomly fucking goes away after they already fucking said they're gonna, like put it out. And then me and my buddy were just sending pictures of Jelaine Maxwell's fucking boobs. Heavy jubes, bro. Those are fucking some Jew knockers right there, man.
All right. All right, I gotta let you go. I literally can barely hear anything. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my fucking audio is like super jacked up right now, and there's like insane echo. So we're just gonna end this here. This is a good spot to end this. Trevor, where can people find you? I don't know if you're on social media or anything, or you just have your book.
I'm terrible at all that. Just go to Amazon, search God's Eye View. That'd make me happy. Buy the book. I do have a podcast too called Happy Fools. Check it out.
Happy Fools podcast. Okay, thank you very much to Trevor. Thank you to you all. I'm sorry I'm ending this a few minutes early, but I literally, without Mark, and again, my audio is all fucked. So nothing we can do here. All right, that's been the show, everybody. Thank you for joining me. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. Get ad-free episodes, all sorts of fun stuff. $5 a month. All right, that's the show. New Bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. See you there. Good night.
Really a poet, you know it, on my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Beat blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurting. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comic through. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. And they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. I'm pulling up fresh on some flight shit.